If you're a paddler, you know the feeling. In the west and the northeastern United States, it occurs when the warmth of spring begins to melt the snowpack. In the south, it occurs when moisture from the Gulf of Mexico meets a front approaching from the northwest, bringing storms and lots of rain. You know the creeks and rivers are coming up. Suddenly your heart is beating a little faster and your mind's busy trying to find out where to go. Not just any river will do. You want the most challenging, most scenic, and above all, most fun run you can find. Soon you're on the phone trying to find out what's running. And the Weather Channel is the only thing interesting on TV. You have to go boating, no question about it. Everything else will have to wait. It is, after all, a mortal sin to miss good water. Does this sound familiar? Then it's safe to say you're addicted to the sport of whitewater paddling. It's also safe to say that you're proud of that fact. This addiction to whitewater spreads across all skill levels and is very contagious. It can also be very hazardous to your health. In this video, we'll take you to Walden's Ridge on the Cumberland Plateau near Chattanooga, Tennessee, to show you what happens when this addiction to whitewater gets a little out of hand. We'll join the homeboys on some of the steepest creeks ever recorded on video. These creeks drop between 600 and 800 feet per mile. You'll meet the guys who explored these runs and learn what keeps them coming back. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you to Adam Sherrill. While making the last 4 videos, I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of very brave and courageous paddlers, and I include Adam among them. No one loves the sport of paddling more than Adam. Because of his bravery, courage, and love of this sport, I'd like to dedicate this video to Adam Sherrill. I'm Wayne Gentry, and this is Vertical Addiction.
Job and go and do some creeking. When it starts to rain, I know I have a mission. Get out into my boat and treat my vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. They like it bigger and wetter. If you ask me, it's the steeper the better. Mama thinks I'm crazy, she thinks I'm going fishing. She doesn't need to know about my vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. Grab your boat and a paddle. Head to the mountains and prepare to do battle. Stroking the road on your favorite run. The only known cure for a vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. I like to have fun, that's what I'm always seeking. I'm gonna quit my job and go and do some creeking. When it starts to rain, I know I have a mission. Get out into my boat and beat my vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. 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 My vertical addiction.
For a lot of paddlers, rafting was your first taste of whitewater. You had a great time, but you realized there was a lot more fun to be had on rivers than you were having in the back of that raft. The next step for many was the tandem canoe trips, probably with your soon-to-be ex-girlfriend, boyfriend, or spouse. Next, it was on to the school of hard knocks and long swims. Some lessons were brutal, but boy, were you having fun. The addiction has begun. Suddenly, you and your boat are one. It feels like you're performing a graceful dance with the river. But you want more, bigger and steeper drops. Then one day you find yourself standing here, above a monster drop, inspecting the line that will either give you the ride of your life or beat the hell out of you. You wonder, how did I get from the back of that raft to here? We asked some experts what causes paddlers to constantly pursue more difficult whitewater.
Naturally, to have fun, you need a steeper and steeper drops, tighter and tighter. And it's a lot of it's adrenaline out here. We're pumped up on adrenaline, and it takes a bigger drop to get our adrenaline pumping. And you know, we just started realizing that we could do harder and harder stuff, bigger drops, and it sure is a lot of fun.
Yes, that doing steeper creeks is basically a natural progression in paddling. I mean, after doing a couple of 100 feet per mile rivers, you get a little bit, you get used to that, and you start looking for a little bit more. And I guess it's just the next step up and the next step, and you just keep taking it a step at a time until eventually you see that what actually can be done.
I think the reason people paddle harder and harder whitewater is the peer pressure, the challenge, and in my case, the adrenaline, which is probably 90% of the boaters out there. They're getting an adrenaline rush out of it.
Adrenaline. Your body produces it when you feel excited, threatened, or challenged. All of your senses are heightened, and it causes you to focus on the challenge before you. Nothing makes you feel more alive than the adrenaline high. And there's no better place to reach that high than the incredibly steep creeks falling off Walden's Ridge on the Cumberland Plateau near Chattanooga, Tennessee. I joined some of the local hardcore boaters to check out 3 of these great runs. This group included Terry Smith, Ron Stewart, Andy Turner, Tim Williams, Doug Wellman, and original characters Clay Wright and Tracy Clapp. The first stop was Henderson Creek. Henderson screams off the plateau. Ron Stewart explains.
In the beginning, like I said, Henderson's pretty flat. Then it picks up to around 300, 400 feet, and then in the middle tough section, which is a good half mile or more, you've got a good 700-800 feet a mile that you're dropping in there. And then by the time you get down to Richland, you're probably back down to about 300 feet a mile in there.
Well, Henderson Creek starts up on the Cumberland Plateau on the Cumberland Escarpment above Dayton, Tennessee. It's a long, steep creek. It runs into Richland Creek. It's got two distinct sections that are a good Class 5 sections. It drops, I believe, more than any of the other creeks in this area as far as vertical feet. It drops about 1,200 vertical feet from top to finish, but it is the longest run, so it kind of spreads it out a little bit. It's got long, continuous rapids. It's a lot of fun. Put-in's a little difficult, but once you get past the first part, it really picks up and doesn't let up to the very end.
Dayton, Tennessee, home of the Scopes Monkey Trials and Henderson Creek. Yes, sir.
Oh, I got grass in my nose. Should have worn nose gloves.
I just love being in the outdoors, first of all. And some of these places we're going, besides being difficult rivers, they're some of the most beautiful spots on earth. And you'd never be able to see these places without a kayak, a lot of them. And that's part of the overall experience, just the general outdoor experience.
The addiction to paddling is caused by more than just adrenaline. As Doug described, the creeks and rivers that we paddle create spectacular gorges. The boating skills we develop allow us to experience places which few people have ever visited. It's like a reward. You worked hard, and the reward for that hard work is being able to paddle through these special wonderlands. Falling Water Creek has carved a majestic masterpiece in the sandstone of the Cumberland Plateau. Tim Williams played in this gorge as a child. Years later, he returned to do the first ascent of this fantastic whitewater.
My parents have a house about a mile away from there, and I grew up wandering around in the gorge. And I never even imagined running it until a friend of mine, Bill Moorwinkle, and I decided to clear it out and see if we could do it. Falling water has to be the most exciting thing I've done, and a part of that is just being right in my backyard and growing up there. Like I said, we never imagined doing it until we started doing things like North Pole and Bear, and it started to think it was possible after that.
Falling water is very small and very steep. Logs and undercuts are a threat in almost every rapid, and many rapids must be portaged because of them. This creek is also very tight, and if running slots is not your game, stay off of falling water. the Dragon's Lair, the Dragon's Breath, and a monster drop named the Hair of the Dragon. 3 nasty rapids tightly packed into one of Falling Water's inner gorges called the Dragon's Den. It's an adrenaline rush in fairy tale land. The extreme whitewater and beauty of Falling Water Creek.
I think a lot of times, when you can be on a run and you can, watch someone else do a run and you can hoop and holler for them that they made it, or you can talk over a move you're thinking about making, or whether or not a certain drop will go. Just that camaraderie, that pleasure of being with them, to me, that's part of the experience, part of the boating, and it's as enjoyable a part of being on the river as is just the wilderness that you're in.
The people we paddle with become some of our best friends. And it's no wonder. As you saw earlier, sometimes our lives depend on them. The close calls, the adventures, the campfires, and the gatherings draw us close to one another. The friends we make are a big part of the addiction to whitewater. Jeff Richards and Dale Johnson. These guys are best friends and two of the best canoeists in the country. They agreed to join us on an extreme run known as the North Pole. Officially, the name of the creek is Morgan's Creek, and it runs through North Pole Gulch. Whatever you call it, this is incredible steep creeking. Ron Stewart.
North Pole is really unique. A lot of rivers like Bear and the Green and some of the others that kind of the gradient builds up on you and then you've got a steep section in the middle. Gradient on North Pole is a true 800 plus feet for the entire mile, mile and a half that you run it. And it's from start to finish, it doesn't let up. It's steep.
North Pole is the extreme of what we consider navigable water. It's extremely tight, steep, and technical. There's absolutely no flat water on it. One big boulder choke rapid into another, and you better be on top of your game out there.
North Pole just never quits. We're about halfway down and the big stuff is yet to come. Never trust a boater with a goatee and a pointy hat. North Pole eventually empties into Richland Creek, and the rapids become a little easier. You get a tremendous feeling of accomplishment when you complete a run like North Pole, or any river that challenges your skills and your fears. But what a feeling when you challenge yourself and you meet that challenge. So what causes the addiction to whitewater? It's the adrenaline rush, the spectacular scenery, the friendships we make, and the feelings of accomplishment. And the most important reason, because it's just so much fun. Find a river that maximizes all of these things, and you found a home. The boaters in this video have found such a place, the steep creeks of Walden's Ridge. Theirs is a vertical addiction.
Paddling, to me, is my passion. I mean, it's what I love most. Never, absolutely will never quit paddling. I know people who've worked, paddled a lot, and they think, oh, well, or they say, I just got tired of it and I don't like it. And I just can't imagine that, and I guess you got other guys who get married and their buddies say, oh, we've lost them, but I don't know. I don't think I'll ever quit paddling. It's a real important part of me. Right.
Job and go and do some creeking. When it starts to rain, I know I have a mission. Get out into my boat and treat my vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. Bigger and wetter. If you ask me, it's the steeper the better. Mama thinks I'm crazy. She thinks I'm going fishing. She doesn't need to know about my vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. Grab your boat and a paddle. Head to the mountains and prepare to do battle. Stroking the road on your favorite run. The only known cure for a vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. I like fun. That's what I'm always seeking. I'm gonna quit my job and go and do some creeking. When it starts to rain, I know I have a mission. Get out into my boat and beat my vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. I just can't deny I've got this affliction. I just can't seem to lose my vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. My vertical addiction. My vertical addiction.
Don't you dare put something like that in there. Okay.
That could be bad.